Hello, everyone. Welcome. It is Monday, which means it's a Masterclass Monday session. Today, we're going to be making timelines. Pretty excited about this. These Masterclass sessions, just to kind of refresh our power users who, we encourage to, step outside of the box when using the tool. For instance, making timelines, which are pretty dang important to world building in general. I mean, if you're making a homebrew campaign for whatever gaming tabletop system that you're using, then hey, it's going to be important to have a timeline so that you have a chronological order of events that take place in your world. If you're a novel writer, it's always nice to have a continuity in the events of your story. So creating a timeline for the story of your books, your novel series, or one novel is very, very helpful. So timelines are pretty important. I use them for my homebrews, and when I write, I also make timelines as well. So very, very useful. Hey, first time chatter, by the way, welcome. Glad that you're here. Hey, Eve. So we're doing timelines today. So here are some examples of ones that I've made, and then I'll show you how to kind of make a couple of these. For instance, you have like a character timeline for like the events of like a single character. This one's made with like the parchment style with little icons to kind of represent events, like an ages timeline with the various ages within a world. Maybe some different themed kinds like a grimdark or gothic horror timeline, an Eastern theme one, and then like a natural history one made with the fantasy world style. Now we're going to be pretty much recreating this one right here. We just released this new fantasy world art, at least recently, and I totally want to showcase more of that art. So we'll use that art style to kind of make something similar, or not exactly, but very similar to this. Again, timelines, very, very helpful in general. So we'll go back. I'm going to go ahead and create a new map. Now, when you're making a timeline, the most basic timeline, the kind of simple ones, uh, usually you're going to make a custom one. It's going to be the lengthwise is going to be going to be horizontal. And so what I'll do is I'll choose one that's 25 by 15. So the 25 is the length going across horizontally, and it can be divided by 5 into 5 sections. So what I'll do is I'll create like 5 eras or ages, and each age will be about 1,000 years. And you can do it whichever metric that you want to do it. An age can be 2,000 years. It could be 1,000,000 years, whatever it is that you want it to be. So set that. And what I do is I just say, okay, I have 5 ages, 25 columns. That means 5 evenly spaced, sized, equal sections for each age. And then I'm going to do 15 vertically, and that will give me enough space to do to have my little markers, to have room on the timeline. So I'll go ahead and edit 4K. Recommend that if you don't have a very powerful machine or strong internet connection, I recommend you edit in a lower editing resolution, like 2 or 3. If you have a nice machine, 4K is great, and makes the images really crisp on the screen. So 25 by 15 will create the new map. Hey, first time chatter, Jonathan Frost. Glad that you're here, by the way. Okay, so I'll turn that grid on, and then you can kind of see the 25. So because I did Fantasy World, it's an isometric. We'll switch it over to here. And so now we have 25 cells across, 15 going down. And now I can evenly put in the timeline stuff. So now when you're first doing the timeline, the very first thing I do is put in the iconic timeline, the line itself. Now, depending on the style that you use, you could use the line tool to create your timeline. See that you have options here, but I want to create a timeline that's going to have segments that are going to represent a certain number of years to it. So what I think I'll do is I'll end up using a stamp called a scale. Now, the scale is already used for measuring distances for what? For distance, right? But in this particular segment, we're going to be measuring something else, right? We're going to be measuring time. So what I'll do is I'll just scale it so that it should be able to fit in these pieces here. Just want to make sure that there's 5 within each 5 length segment. Let's go ahead and scale it down a little bit. I think that looks about right. There we go. And let's just change the width of it. Or, oopsie, my mistake. Oop, I'll have to fix that again. 1 second. Here we go. Just going to use the grid as a guide, okay? There we go. Now what I'll do is I'll go ahead and just take this, and I'm going to turn my snap to grid. You'll notice here at the bottom, works out great. Hey, Bitter Dan, I'm glad that you're here. And we'll go ahead and just snap to grid, copy, paste. And then I'll just copy and paste more of them. And then another one. There you go. Okay, so this is going to be the timeline itself. I can bring the grid down opacity and bring it down a layer. Okay, and I don't even think that's even the right amount there. To put it dead in the center, I could just bring it down one right there. And now it's dead in the center. And if you feel that they're not aligned correctly, you can click, select all of them, just click, hold, drag, hamburger menu, align, distribute, and then center vertically. And then it will straighten them all out so they're perfectly aligned. So let me do it again so you can kind of see what that looks like. If I move it up one like this, and then I just click align, distribute, center vertically, boom, it does it all together, see? So remember those nice little trick there. After you've done that, you're going to group it, obviously call it the timeline, create. Now you have it there. And what I generally do is I have it be up several layers. So the fourth layer is fine, and then we're going to lock it so that way I don't accidentally select it. Okay? Now after I've done that, now I can start putting together the era parts. Remember, those are going to be the 5 across, 15 down. And there are a couple ways that I can go about doing this. You can use, you can continue to use these scales to create the dividers between each one. You can use the line tool here and just use any one of these stamps. What I think I'll do is just stick with the scale concept. I really like those scales. So I'll go back in here and just select this scale right here. And I'll just use this as my divider between each one. And I want to make sure that it's 5 cells across. So I just go like this. There we go. I might even want to scale them down just a little bit. No, we'll leave it as it was. That's fine. We'll copy, paste it. Again, make sure there are 5 cells each. Don't want to make sure I go over that. There we go. And then now these are going to be what are going to be your era or age or eon or whatever you want to call them, right? So then I'll go ahead and just group these. So create group, and I'll call them ages borders. Again, you can call them whatever you want. It doesn't have to be ages. So we'll create, and I'm going to bring these down. I don't mind things being underneath or on top of the ages part. So I'll just go push it at the very bottom, and then I'll lock it. Now I don't accidentally select anything. Now I'll probably want to pick a texture that I want to be my background, and that just depends on the style that you're going for. Usually I just use like a parchment color, like this color works just fine. Just set to background fill, and then you have, and I think this color and the parchment colors work overall because the color of these stamps are brownish colors. You've got some tan and then some other browns. So this kind of just matches in with that. Now that I've got that all done, I can just turn off my grid. I have each era or ages set up. And now what I can do is add in like a title plate or a banner of some sort at the bottom. There's a lot of things that you can do. You can use something like these little title plates here. You could use this legend right here if you wanted to. You could use, there's all kinds of stuff that you can use. Let's try banners here. There's all kinds of banners here. Expand all, see all these banners. You could use a banner at the bottom to represent, to put the text where the age is going to be. A lot of different options. But what I think I'll go with is I kind of like this green color right here. Right now we just have a lot of browns, a lot of kind of tan colors. This asset has a tan in it, but it also has this lovely green. And so I think that just adds a touch of color to it. And what I'll do is I'll space it out and then go ahead and place it. I'm going to turn the snap to grid function off. I don't really need it. And I think I'll flip it upside down like this so it looks like a crown. There we go. And what I'll do is I'll just copy and paste these at the bottom. And what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to be creating a little scene that's going to represent the defining moment, the defining event within each age and era. Now, of course, for your timeline, there doesn't have to be one defining event. It could be 12 defining events. It could be 13. It could be whatever number you want. But to start it out, we'll go with something easy, okay? So just one defining event within whatever it is. And you don't have to set it up this way. So first, I'll just select every single one of these. Remember earlier, I did the align, distribute, center vertically. And now these are nicely aligned properly together. And I can create this group. And I can call it the titles or title plates. Create, and I'm going to place these down. Let's place these at the very top, layer 4 or close to the very top, because whatever I want stamps to be behind that. So I'll go ahead and lock that. So we've got the basics. We're setting up the framework for the timeline. Okay, so it works out pretty good. Okay. All right. Let's zoom in and take a look here. We're at 41 changes. Let's go ahead and save it, and then we'll call it timeline. I usually do about 100 changes or so, but I think 40 changes, just save it, just to be safe. And then after this, we'll start putting together. Let's start putting together the markers that are going to represent certain events. And I said that we're going to just use Fantasy World, but I think what we'll end up doing is kind of taking some stamps from the Parchment World, because there's Parchment stamps that kind of more suit to events. So what we'll do is we'll create the marker. And what I'll do is I'll use the shields. And I think I'll use, what do we got here? Green. We've already got a green color in here. Let's go ahead and use the green shield. This will work out just fine. And I think this size even works fine. You could also put your number metric down right away if you want. Each one of these, if this was like 1,000 years, then, 200 something years or whatever it is for each one of those metrics. Each one of those could be about 200 years or so, maybe a little bit more or less, give or take. It's up to you what you want to have. It just depends what you want each one to kind of represent in one of those little ages spaces. I'm not going to worry about putting the numbers down right now. I'm just going to kind of start put things together because of our limited amount of time. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look here. Yep, this looks good. All right, let's go ahead and make those markers. Like I said, whenever I make like a marker, I usually make it big first so that way I can kind of edit it a little bit more easily, and then I can just scale it down when I'm done with it. And I'll just take another one of those. And then what I'm going to do is just bring the brightness all the way up and bring the contrast all the way down to make a perfect white kind of line there. And that way, whatever icon I put inside of this thing, it's going to pop out against that contrasting white. Let's also create like an arrow or something so that it's pointing somewhere. So let's go ahead and place this down like that. We have a nice little arrow there. Place it down right there. Okay, and you know what I'll do? I'll also, let's leave it green, that's fine. Place it here, and then I'm going to make sure that these are aligned properly. So I'll go ahead and distribute center horizontally. They're all distribute evenly. There we go. And then I'm going to create the group. We're going to call it a marker. So this is going to be a base marker. In fact, we'll call it a base marker. And what's really great about this is that just leave one marker that has nothing in it off to the side here, and that way you can clone and edit it multiple times. Okay, so now that we've done that, let's copy, paste it, put it over here, and then we can put an icon on top of it. And I'm going to use Parchment World for that. So we'll go into the catalog, and we'll go to Parchment World. We'll let that kind of open up a bit, and I'm going to expand all the assets. And there's quite a few things in here. So what we'll do is we'll kind of go over all the symbols here, and you'll see there's all kinds of great symbols here, like the death of an important person, maybe the horse lords, an encampment around somewhere, or an orc invasion, a certain knight was knighted, a university was established, a battle took place, a revolution took place, a famous scholar or writings. All of these icons kind of work well. Let's stick with like a really simple one, like a battle that took place. And so we're just going to place that there, and then we'll open this back up and place that icon in there like this. And what I think I'll also do is just make it black so it pops out even more against. And I think I'll rotate it just a little bit, just to give it a little fun to it. There you go. And so you have your first marker. Now you can just scale it down like this, then you can place it on the timeline. What's also nice is that sometimes you might have multiple markers that are so close to each other and they don't touch the timeline. What I end up doing is I just use a path to connect it to the timeline. So I'll use a black path. I'll turn the shadow off. We'll use a straight line, not a dashed one. And then I just go ahead and click, go like this, and then just connect it to the timeline. I'll push it back so it's below. So this way, you can now place icons real close to each other like this, and you still have the room that you need. So if you want multiple things close to each other, and then just group it, right? Create group. And then now you can just kind of move this where you want it. So just think about that. And there's no particular way that I have like one icon being on top of the other. If this is like a super important event, why not make it higher up with a line attaching it to the line? If it's I don't know, a secondary event, then push it closer down to the line like this. It's up to you how you want to translate the importance of events. Okay, now let's keep adding more to it. Generally, I like to also add, let's actually undo that. Let's push this. I also like to add some kind of little tiny little title plate. I like to add that as well to it. So I'll go into Fantasy World, take one of these. Ooh, let's see here. Let's type in title. There should be in here. Yeah, there we go. Let's use one of these. Let's go with this one. I don't like the color, so I'll just desaturate it. I'm going to push it back several layers behind like this. And then if I feel like it needs to be wider, I can always go with height to make it wider, to make it thinner. It's just enough space for you to label what the event might be. This could be the battle of something, right? And so then you have this text that you would put in there. And then this way you have this icon right here. You can have it labeled. It's like if you have this event right here. And it's okay if it overlaps the ages or era section, that's okay. So I just place that down right there. Okay, so you get the general idea is you start with the frame, which is the timeline, the ages, all that stuff. And then you start putting together the various icons that you want. And there's all kinds of ways that you can make these kind of little icons that you're going to place on your timeline. There's no wrong or right way. Be creative, use stamps, kind of put things together. It's pretty easy to do, and it's a lot of fun. So that's that part. So now that you understand the putting the icons together, let's do that next part, which is how is it that I do the background design for each one of these eras. So first what I'll do is I'll have to give each age a name, right? So we'll stick with like the first one, which I think would be pretty clear is like the creation, right? So we'll go with creation. And when you're placing text down on top of something, you should always remember the concept of contrast. You see, this banner is a light color and the text is also a light color. So you know what would work better is if you used a darker color, right? And then boom, it uses contrast for that to pop out. So not too complex. You can even increase the space like this if you want to fill out more of it. But I think I'll just go with this right here. So we've got creation, and you can change the blend mode too. If you want to have it just be overlay so it fits like that, you can do that too. It's up to you how you want to do it. I kind of like that, so I'll probably keep that. And I'll put a text pretty much in every single one of these, and then I'll rename them. And remember, if you have like 20 different ages or eras, you just have to resize the map, okay? Because if you're thinking, well, wait a minute, you only got 5 ages in your world, whew, that's not a very big world. Don't worry about that. You can totally just resize it. You would go over to the grid here, resize it. I would snap to grid to have that on there. And then you would just go like this. And then just add in the amount of space that you need. If you overshoot or undershoot how much it is across, don't worry about that. You can always just resize later to shave off what you need to, okay? But for right now, I'm just sticking with 5. But if you wanted more, you simply just needed to resize and then change. Go ahead and open up the two groups for the timeline and the ages and just add those new dividers and timeline pieces. That's it. So not complex, but so it's easy to put together. Let's do this next one, which I think will be like an Ice Age. And I'm noticing here the text is kind of overlapping that a little bit. We'll put maybe a Verdant Age. Let's put in like a catastrophe. It's always nice to throw in some kind of despair, right? Is that in a catastrophe? Oopsie, I didn't spell that right, by the way. I know someone was going to have to call me out on that. And then we can call this like the Age of Revival or something. Okay, so we got the Age of Revival. Okay, so now that we have those put together, that's fine. And what I'll do is I'll select all of them. And again, I want them to be aligned. So I'll just center vertically, and that way they're all selected, and I can now lock them. I always try to lock whatever I'm not using, because you will accidentally select things. That happens. So now let's do the background part, because we're already 20 minutes in. We'll make more icons, but let's just make sure that I go through each step in the process before I start adding any more of the little icon stuff. Let's start with like the creation process. And, you know, you can base it on whatever you want. I personally love science, so I'm going to have it to where maybe like either a meteor kind of like crashed into like a moon or something, and then it kind of created the rock that is the world that it is this world. Or you can have like a violent like volcanoes, which pushed out a bunch of chemicals out of the ground and then kind of created the pools, the you know, the chemicals needed, the compounds needed to kind of create life. So, and then of course, if you want to add like a fantasy element to it, then have like a god, maybe a god or a goddess or gods looking over the creation. And let's do it that, because it's fantasy. We'll go with that instead. And, you know, some great stuff that you can find is in the heraldry section here. There's some great stuff in here. If I just type in heraldry here, or decorations, I think has some of the animals in here. Expand all assets. And there's mythical creatures in here. We've got unicorns. Maybe your world is made of nothing but water. Use a water creature that maybe somehow a water creature sacrificed themselves against some evil god, and then the remains of that body, that corpse, when it coiled up, made the world, right? Whatever it is that you have for your lore, for your timeline. So I think that water world sounds kind of cool. Let's go with that. So I'll throw in this kind of creature right here. I'm going to push this down at the very bottom layer. And I'll put one right here, like a little sea creature here at the bottom. And then maybe I'll also throw in, oh, this is kind of a nice one right here. Maybe two of them. That's kind of cool. In fact, let's just use this one. Use that one right there. I like that one. And then I can put like a ball of water or something that it's inside of, or it's around. And then what I'll do is I'll also use one of these kind of nice little swirls right here. I kind of like this. This is kind of cool. Maybe this can kind of represent like the creation of the world. So what I'll do is I'll push this up and then put this within this little swirl right here. I kind of like that. That's kind of cool. There we go. And you can place these wherever you want. You can place the background imagery anywhere you want. The outline that I kind of use is I'll have like a symbol or an icon that I made at the top, and that kind of represents that event. And then I might have some terrain at the bottom. And then that way I can kind of showcase the heraldry, the decorations on top of the terrain stamps, like the mountains, the trees. I can still use all of those to kind of show those off in here. So I'll place this here. And there are multiple ways that I might want to go about having this interact with the background. You can have it be colored like this, and that way it just kind of pops out. Just kind of make sure that it doesn't contrast too much against the icons that you're placing down. So what I might want to consider doing instead is creating a watermark. And so to make it look like a watermark, you just go to the blend mode, luminosity, and now you have it look more like a watermark. The line work is a little contrasting too much, so I'll go to color and bring the contrast down, bring the brightness up, and what that will do is it will kind of make it look like it's a watermark. And I think that looks nicer. And when I place a marker on top of it, it isn't going to distract or get lost in that little icon right there. So I think it's nice to always throw in like a little bit of a watermark. So I'll go ahead and just put it right here in the center there. And then what I'll do is I'll make some terrain too. So I'll show grid. And then what I'll do is I'll go to background because I'm not using any FG here. And then I'll select grid. I'm just going to bring the grid size for the brush down to 1. And then choose a texture that I want to use. And it depends what's going on. Remember I said it was a water world, so maybe it makes sense to kind of go in like this and create some ocean right here. And now that I have that, I might want to throw in maybe my sea creature again. Only this time I can have it be in color, right? Because it's down here. So let's go put that in color. Let's put that down here like this. There we go. And if I want, I can put some waves in here. I can put some clouds. I think the ocean and some clouds is a nice touch. So let's throw those in. Let's push this up a layer, bring this one down. I want it to pop out a little bit. So I kind of feel like the cloud's a little gray. So let's bring the brightness up. There we go. That looks better. And I'll just go ahead and place them right along the horizon. Let's put another one right here. And then let's actually push these a little bit more forward. Let's go up a layer. There we go. And I can push these down. There we go. Now I have a little bit more layers to work with. Cool little trick here. You can make clouds look like they're further off in the distance by making them a little bit darker. So if I push this and makes this a little bit darker like this, it'll make it look like there's a darker cloud in the distance. You can also blur it as well. Just click blur like this and it will make it look like it's in the background. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to use contrast to create depth. Okay, there we go. That looks good. I just want it to be to where it kind of evens out a little bit. One there. Let's put another one right over here. I'm going to put it right behind there. There we go. Okay, in fact, we'll switch that around. Let's put this one over here. This one over here. Okay. Now we can take a step back and look at it. I think that overall looks right. Let's turn that grid off for now so I can kind of see what it looks like overall. Yeah, that looks nice. I might even change it up a little bit to add a better water texture because there's not a lot of artifacts in here. I could just use this white water alpha texture. Let's try that. Ah, there we go. That's much better. In fact, let's put it on one more time. There we go. There we go. Now we have some nice waves. It just looked like a flat kind of blue texture, and I wanted to add some wave action in there. I think that works better. There we go. The last thing I'm going to add in it is probably going to use a light source to the eye. Glowing eyes, I think, look really cool. So I'll just click Inkarnate, and in that way it'll go through every single one. Hey, Simon, welcome. First time chatter, glad to have you here. Let's stick with the bluish kind of theme. So I'll use this color right here. And what I'll do is I will go to normal. I'm going to put the light just right on top of the eye. Let me just make sure it's up a couple layers. There we go. Right there on the eyeball. There we go. And just to kind of show the importance of this age, of how the world was created. Okay, we have that. And then you can add in more things into the background. I usually just have the image down at the bottom because that way I won't be competing too much with the icons. So that's kind of one thing why I don't create this whole image all the way up to the timeline. You can totally do that. That's up to you. But just remember that you don't want the icons to conflict with the background imagery. That just won't work. Once you've done that, then I just select it all, create group, and then what I'll do is I'll call it creation background. Oops, sorry, cancel. Let me select these as well. There we go. Now I have them all. Create group, creation background. Okay, so you guys are kind of getting the idea. 114 changes, we'll save it. All right, cool. We've got a lot done here. Let's just go ahead and keep, now that you know how to do that cell, how to do each era or age or whatever you do. Let's make a couple more icons, and then we'll make another age background, and then we'll call it good. So let's keep making some more icons. So I'm going to copy, paste, make another one, and I'll remove that battle icon there. In fact, let's just go in here. There we go. And then I can go back. Let's say, let's go back into the catalog here. We're going to Parchment World. Again, expand all the assets. What? We just did a battle. Let's do like maybe a king was coronated or something. So let's do that. I'll just bring the brightness to black. And I'll scale it up a little bit. So change the height. There we go. Make sure the crown really sticks out. There we go. And this will be like a coronation icon. So we've got that one. We've got this one. There we go. That looks good. Let's go ahead and delete this. Get that out of the way. And I can just copy and paste each one of these. Let's create some more icons, right? We want to create a lot of them. And you don't even have to do it that way. A marker doesn't have to have an icon. The marker could just be an arrow pointing to the line with the title of the event. Okay, I just throw in the icons because I think it just adds an extra visual element to it. It's not something that you have to do. Okay, so don't think that it's something you have to do. All right, let's go with like maybe a revolution of some kind. Good or bad. That icon. There we go. Let's just keep making a couple more of these. This way we can have more time to make more of those background scenes because those are really fun to make. Okay, let's keep going. Let's see here. All kinds of things. You could have like a technological event that took place, like gunpowder was created. Something like that, right? This could totally mean like a technological event that took place. Let's just make a whole bunch of them. We'll make 4 more, and then we'll keep working on the ages, okay? Let's open up this one and just keep going. Pretty easy stuff to make. Let's see here. You've got like someone important died. Let's fix that transform real quick. There we go. Someone important died. Who died? Could have been a lord. Could have been a revolutionary leader. Could have been whatever. A lot of different options, right? And what's really cool, one of the reasons why I use the black like this is that if you want to create your own icon, you can with the black path. You can create your own, and that way it's just simple icons. That's why I don't recommend really complex icons. They're just simply made of black, and in that way you can make your own icon with a black path. Just draw it out, and then there you go. They rename it, and then now you have an icon that you made yourself, right? So that's kind of a nice little trick there, just to let you know. You can just use the black path, and we'll probably end up making just one of them so you can see what I mean. Okay. We'll just keep kind of going through the icons, see what else we can find here. Maybe there was an important encampment or something, right? So we'll just keep pushing these down. The brightness down. Okay. We're going to make 2 more, and we're going to go back to our backgrounds. I just wanted to make sure that you guys kind of get, we'll make 1 more of this. Let's go, an important text was created. Maybe the religious document, the Bible of your fantasy world, whatever it might be, right? And then now I'll make my own icon, and I'll show you how to do that, okay? So we'll just take a black path like we have here. We'll make it draw. Now, if you're using a mouse, this is going to be a little bit harder, but if you have a pen, it works out great. But what happens if I wanted to, I don't know, make a symbol for something that isn't already in there, like maybe a fallen star or something, So if you wanted to do that, you can just draw your own fallen star, just give it a star icon, and then have 3 little lines going like this. Whatever it is, that's how simple it is to make whatever icon that you want, right? And then you just put it on top of the thing like that. So making your own icon is super easy. Just use that black path. So I would just create the group. We'll call it Comet or Falling Star or whatever you want it to be. I'm going to copy, delete, open this up, and just place it right in there. There we go. Okay. So that's how simple it is putting it together. And then you would just put on this. And what I also do is I'll sometimes rotate it. So what I'll do is I'll push this icon up this way, like that. And then this way, I can also have icons on the bottom part, okay? Just so you know, and with lines as well. So little simple tricks there. You can have ones on the bottom and the top. Otherwise, the top is going to get clustered. There's a reason why I put the line in the center. It's so that way there's a lot of room to put your icons. And if you start to feel that you don't have enough room or too many events, simply scale the icons down. Now at this length, you can put on a ton more. And just remember, if some start to stack up too much, just use that line to connect it to the base. Okay, so not hard, super complex stuff. The more events, just scale down your markers. That's really the trick, okay? So pretty easy stuff. I'll delete that. We don't need that anymore. You guys get the idea. Let's go ahead and make a couple more backgrounds. Let me check the time. 36 minutes. Yeah, we have enough time for another background. Let's do it. Okay, we want to show like an ice age, right? So we'll continue. Let's pick a texture maybe that we want that would work for ice. There's a cracked ice texture. That's okay. Let's try Fantasy Regional. There we go. There's some cracked ice in there. And we'll just put that ice right there. Sometimes you might not find the texture that you need, but because all the textures are incarnate, the Fantasy Regional probably should work okay with Fantasy World. So we'll go ahead and put that ice age in there. I'm also just going to paint in all the ages, the base textures. So I'll go ahead and put like the Verdant Age here in green, hence the word verdant. I'll have like the catastrophe be like red, like this for now, like maybe lava or some kind of disaster. And then I'll just use a lighter kind of swampy green because it's not fully verdant like the Verdant Age, okay? All right, now let's continue working on the stuff here. So there's some good stamps for this stuff. Right here you've got icebergs. That works out great. And then these little what are these ones called? Ice floats. These are going to work great. And what we're going to do is just going to create a little scene with this. And so what I'll do is I'll go ahead and just kind of go through them. This kind of has a dramatic kind of shape to it. I really like that. That'll be kind of like the centerpiece. And then maybe I can just put some smaller ones right here like this. And then I can go in and place these kind of wherever I want to put them. So we'll scroll through. Let's put one right here. Let's see here. Where do I want this one? Right here looks good. Let's put one right here and one right there. And then, should I put one in the background? I could bring the brightness down. Remember the contrast trick? In fact, we'll do it to the other stuff instead. We'll do this one. There we go. Put that in the back like that. And I'll bring the brightness down. Remember our trick to show contrast. That's in the very front. Let's bring the brightness up on this one to show that this one's even closer up than this one. There you go. And then throw in some fantasy stuff. Maybe some floating. There's some floating snowy rocks. Let's put in some of that. That'd be kind of fun, right? Put some of those in. The ones that are in the foreground will be bigger and brighter. So I'll select all of these. These are going to be in the foreground. Let's push them up. There we go. And let's bring the brightness up. So those are in the foreground. Now let's make the background ones. So we'll bring the brightness back down. Bring it down quite a bit. Rescale it. Make sure it goes down a couple layers. And just to show that they are behind things, I'll go ahead and put them behind some stuff here. Let's put some bigger ones too, just to make sure. There we go. And I'm going to bring them up to around the same height of where the clouds are. So that way there's some continuity. There we go. All right, that looks good. And then again, we're going to create the icon that will be up here at the top. Okay, so we can go into like creatures. We can go into decorations. We can put in like, maybe there wasn't, let's see here. I'm trying to think here what I might want to use for this. Let's go to expand all assets. See here. Ooh, I kind of like this one right here. This looks kind of good. It's a nice little swirl right here. This works fine. Let's try using that. Again, remember the trick? Luminosity. There we go. Bring the brightness up and the contrast down. There we go. And just kind of decide where you want that to be. And if you want Put other stuff in there as well. If you feel like, oh, it's too similar to the other one, that's okay. You can throw in other stuff. Maybe you want to throw in some clouds in here, right? Just remember to change that blend mode to luminosity. Bring the contrast down, the brightness up. Keep bringing that contrast down, and then you can just go ahead and place the clouds. A little too bright, I'd say, so I can always just bring that down. Let's go ahead and fix that. 1, 2, there we go. A little too bright. There we go. Bring the contrast down just a little bit more. There we go. So now that you have that icon there, I might want to scale it up. It seems a little small. Let's scale it to at least be a decent size. There we go. And then just select, oops, see, this is why you should always lock stuff. And then we'll select everything right here. Create group, Ice Age, background. Well, why is everything's in caps there? I don't know. Oopsie. I hope that you guys are kind of getting the general idea where we at for time here. 41 minutes. Yeah. All right. We can make one more background, and then we're going to call it good for this stream. I've kind of explained all the steps on putting it together, so you should be able to really, I don't even have to show you anymore. You should be able to put it your own timeline, or at least this kind of a timeline, or similar to, if you want to. Ooh, you know, I just realized I didn't pin all those timelines in the chat, so I'll make sure to do that as well. My mistake. You saw those timelines in the beginning of the stream. If you want to clone and edit those, you totally can. Those links are provided in the chat. If you're watching on YouTube, that will be in the video description, okay? Let's go ahead and do the Verdant Age, okay? And it's called Verdant because it's green, right? So what might be a good idea is to try to find some green stance, trees, maybe some green hills. All of those things are going to be extremely helpful. So let's just type in hill. And we'll type that in. Let's see here. Oh, there's a hill with clipping masks, so it might not be a bad idea to maybe use one of those. And what I'll do is clipping masks work on the FG layer, so you'll have to paint like this on the FG layer. There we go. And now the stamps will pick up what's on the FG layer. So let's push. These are going to be all the way on layer -5. And I'll go ahead and push these. Now, if you ever feel that your hills are they're just not tall enough, you can totally fix that. Just push them up like this to make them taller. If you feel they're too wide, you can just go like this and like this to make them big and bumpy. Okay, so just some tricks there for you guys to use when you're kind of putting it together. There you go. So now I have some terrain. Now let's make some trees. And I'm going to use a diversity of trees. So I'll type in tree. Some of my favorite trees are like these big, lush sequoias. So let's go ahead and push these down. I'm going to put some on top of the hill here, just to give it an extra sense of height. Like this. We'll put these on the tops of the hills. Like this. There we go. And then let's add a different tree type as well. Let's throw in maybe these evergreens. These are nice. I'll scale them down a little bit so they don't, I want some of the tallness of those trees to show up. Some of the brown of the trunks to show up. So what I'll do is I'll make sure that they don't hide the green of those trunks. There we go. Okay. We're just gonna, again, I want it to show that there is a sense of greenness. I'm going to put down multiple trees. By a diversity of plant life looks it's realistic to us. So it's always good to throw in those kind of elements. All right, let's throw another one right here. And then let's go add another tree. Let's see here. Common light green. This is kind of a darker green. I kind of like this color. Let's go with this one right here. We'll scale them down even smaller. And then just kind of place these where you want them. Like this. Okay. And don't be afraid to have some being behind the banner as well. And the way that I kind of show a realism in tree distribution is what I'll do is I'll create like a dense wooded area, and then I'll maybe create a little patch of 3 trees, and then maybe 1 or 2 trees singularly by themselves. It's a way of showing kind of like a diversity of plant life. And I'll even put some underneath here because there's just a lot of random kind of green, what's called negative space. And I don't want all that negative space. Okay, let's take a look. Yeah, that looks good. And let's throw in one last bit. Let's throw in some bushes. We'll type in bush, put these small ones in, and let's actually go with this kind of color right here because this should contrast a little bit. And I'll just place a couple of these. You know what? They're a little too tan. Let's go with the green instead. There we go. Remember that trick. Just do little clusters, 3 or 4 here and there, and then little separate pieces. Okay, pop. Put a couple here. Ooh, I see that I have a spot that I need to hit up. There, okay, go back and put the green in right here. There we go. Okay, let's take a step back and just look at it. There we go. One thing you can do to kind of match the height is to add in mountains. So if I just type in mountain right here, and I'm not going to use one that has too much of a clip mask. It has a little bit, and then I'm just going to place these in the background on layer -4, like this, and then just place them down like this. And what I'll do is I want to get a sense of epicness. So what I'll do is I'll adjust some of the settings to it so that way you really get a sense of height. And then we can kind of create some mountains here in the background there. And if you want to show, again, remember that little trick? You want to show that something's further in the background, bring the brightness down. So this one is bright, so it looks up in the foreground. Copy. We'll go ahead and take this one right here, put another one down right here, and push it right here. And then I'll bring the brightness down because I want to show this one's like way in the background. So we'll put that down right here like that. And then the last thing to do is you can throw in some trees because some clouds, because where there is green, there's water, and for water you need clouds. So it's always good to throw in some clouds into here. We can push some into the background as well, like this. And then I'll bring the brightness down so it pops out. Oopsie, I think it's at luminosity. I think I need to fix that. Let's go back to normal. There we go. Okay. Have a little one there, one right here, and then we'll put one right here. There we go. There can be even one more in the background, I think. Right about there. Oops. Normal. There we go. Okay, let's take a look here. There we go. Yeah, that looks good. And then the icon, which is going to be at the top. Because it's the Verdant Age, it kind of makes sense to put a tree in there, but not just any tree. Let's put like an epic tree, like one of the world tree icons. Put that there. Again, blend mode, luminosity, brightness and the contrast. Remember, you're making a watermark. There we go. Bring the brightness up a little bit more. I want it to pop out. There we go. And now we have that section done. So I'll make sure to lock this one. Select all of these. Create group. Again, Verdant Age background. It's in all caps still. Okay, let's go ahead and save that. Where are we at for time? Yep, it is 48 after. All right, so, hey, while it's saving, let's just quickly recap the order of operation when you're putting these together. The timeline first, that's that line in the center. I put it in the center because you want room for those little icons that you're making, right? After you've made the timeline, you'll group that. If you use a line, you don't have to worry about that. Lock that, then create the different ages, right? I use the scales stamp for that, but you can totally use the line shape or the line tool or the shape tool or whatever you want to create the divider lines. Again, I only used these stamps because I'm trying to stick within using the same style. I cheated a little bit and added a couple stamps from Parchment and one texture from Fantasy Regional. It's okay. Just make sure that they kind of blend well together. After you've made that, then the titles, the age, then throw in the water, make the little icons, the little markers, create the background, the watermarks. And then you can also add in filters, which I totally recommend. And one of the best things is just go to a color adjustment filter. This is a great filter to use because then you can kind of boost the saturation. You can really get the colors out really well. You can change the hue to change it to whatever kind of color that you want. If you feel it's a little too dark, you can always bump up the brightness to make it pop out more. Again, you can bump that saturation up. You could use the contrast to give it more contrast or less contrast. So what I normally do is I'll end up boosting the saturation because I've just kind of noticed that the human eye really likes color a lot. And so bumping up the saturation more will really catch the eye. So I definitely recommend a clarity filter or using the color adjustment and then just bump up that saturation. Okay, again, and sometimes I'll even bring the brightness up a little bit because sometimes I feel it might be a little too dark. And then you can add whatever kind of filters that you want on top of it. The color filters are great. They come up with tons of options here. You can have it faded if you want it to look like it's old or worn out. Maybe you want it to be yellow. You want it to be grayscale. You want it to be blue, more blue, red. You want to add a cold warm to it. All of those things work great. You can also throw in texture filters. One of my favorite ones is this one right here, leather. And it just kind of will add overlay to it. And it kind of just adds this very leathery kind of look to it. And it adds more artifacts. Let me show you what it looks like with it off. And then when I turn it back on, you have more artifacts. And also it kind of makes sure that all the art kind of blends in together because I'm using a filter to add additional artifacts. And then that's it. That's pretty much it for making this kind of timeline. If people end up liking this kind of stream, if they like these kind of timelines, there's so many different ways to make timelines. And so if that's something that people like, then maybe a future one will add that in, okay? So just kind of let me know what you guys want to see in our streams, what you want to see in our masterclass, or what you want to see what we do on Wednesdays, which is our regular, for just regular users, okay? All right. Thank you so much, everyone. This was great. I had a great time making this. Don't forget to check all the links at the top. If you missed the links to all the different timelines, they're all templates that you can edit and change. Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to be adding this to YouTube. Thanks, Better Dan. Glad that you were here. Thank you, everyone. You've been great. Really enjoyed this stream. I'm looking forward to Wednesday's stream, which is Creating an Epic World Part 2. We're going to be focusing on creating the mountain ranges, tectonic plate tectonics, different ways that mountains are formed, all that kind of stuff. All right. You guys are amazing. Merry map making. I will see you all soon. Thank you so much, everyone. Bye.